Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. Today is Sunday, July 27th, and I just came home from taking my mom home. She spent the last few days over here, and we had a good time. Got to hang out, took her to concerts in the park. Went for a lot of walks near the beach, and she loves to go walking. So it's fun. It's really fun. It's not easy taking care of someone who has Alzheimer's, but at the same time, it's fun just to spend time with your mom or your dad, and just hanging out with them and enjoying whatever time you have left. So we had a good weekend. Not easy, but we had a good weekend. I know that the National is coming up this week. I have not attended a national in a good 20 or 30 years when they were in Los Angeles. Uh, it looks like it's going to be huge this year. Just by looking at some of the notes I wrote down for today's video. Um, if I went to the national again, I would definitely need a massive budget just because if I'm going to fly out to Chicago or Cleveland, or they talk about the future in Detroit or Atlanta, I'm going to have to go with a budget, a nice big budget. So don't know if that'll be happening anytime soon, but you never know. But it reminded me that I did a video a couple of years ago, and I was just going to post a link about it and say, oh, take a look at the video I did a couple of years ago. But I got some new subscribers who weren't watching me 2 years ago. So I thought I'd just refresh this story, maybe make it a 2025 version. Um, but I went to the very first national, believe it or not. The very first national was in Los Angeles, technically Inglewood, California, which is out by LAX, Los Angeles International Airport. And I went with some buddies. I was all of 15 years old. And I've got some notes here just because I wanted to make sure that I say the info right. And the first national, or back then it was called the Collectors Convention. In fact, that's how my friends and I knew card shows. They were called something that big was called the convention. And it was going to be at the Grand Ballroom at the LAX Airport, or LAX Airport Marriott Hotel, which still exists to this day, in the Grand Ballroom, which doesn't exist anymore. They've probably changed their names by then. Um, Back then, like I said, this was the biggest card show, even back in 1980. 12,000 square feet. 12,000 square feet. How does that compare to today? Uh, the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center is square feet is 500,000 square feet. Are they going to use it all? I have a feeling they are. So it shows you how much bigger it is. Tables back then were $50. I don't know how much tables are today. One of you can tell me. If you were staying at the hotel, a table was only $40. Oh, and I should say the table was $50 or $40 if you were staying at the hotel for the entire weekend. So it wasn't just for daily. And admission was a whopping $1. Who could forget that? So my friends and I, there were two friends in particular. My buddy Eric, who I tend to talk about a lot because uh, we still talk a lot, and then our friend Dan. The three of us, we were all of 14, and I was 15 years old by the time this national was going around. But we were doing a lot of collecting at the age of 14. And the three of us at one point all worked at what I would say was the very first local card show, or local card store, excuse me, in my area, which back then was near Arcadia, California. It was called the Baseball Card Collectors Headquarters. And it was a tiny store. My memories of that store were funny, though, because I listened to Dr. Beckett's podcast every week. And back then, at this card store, we had boxes, which today are referenced as dollar boxes. Back then, they were dime boxes, quarter boxes, 50-cent boxes. Now, we did have dollar boxes. I got in trouble because the dollar boxes are where you put your really good cards back then. So one day I let someone take the dollar box and take it out onto the floor. And the owner's wife got there and said, "What are the $1 boxes doing out on the floor for just anyone to take?" And I completely forgot that we had a rule that the $1 boxes had to stay on the counter where they could look through the box on their own, but we just had to be there. So that shows you how times have changed. The dollar box now, I don't know if there's anything valuable in the dollar box. I'm sure Dr. Beckett will gladly tell you yes. So back then we had a card store, and then the owner of that card store started having shows. We'd never been to a show before, and we had we had shows at a Best Western Inn type hotel, that had there's just an auditorium or some type of room there, and we'd have shows there, and then we'd also have shows at the Elks Club. And looking back on it, it couldn't have been more than 20 to 50 tables tops. I do remember that at those type of card shows, you would see some vintage. I mean, everything was vintage at that point, but in 1979, 1980, I remember seeing like a 1953 top Satchel Paige. That was the first time I ever saw a 1961 Topps All-Star card. And I remember my buddy Eric showing me one, and I think it was Roger Maris or Brooks Robinson, someone like that. And I remember him showing it to me, and I go, "That looks like a 1970 All-Star card." And he was like, "No, look, it's a 1961 Topps high number." And I thought, oh my God, even back then I was saying amazing, and you guys know I talk about that now. And it was amazing. But back then we had a local cards show. Near the end of the night, we have an auction. We would all, since I worked there, we would sit on the stage of the auditorium and they'd have an auction. I wish I could go back, not just because I'd love to see what type of cards they had back then, but it was a good time back then. I definitely remember that. I remember I started getting upset a year into it just because I remember saying, "Gosh, I'm taking $10 to this card show and I'm only buying like 10 cards." I remember I was telling people I'm at the point now where I'm spending $1 on each card, and that was a serious complaint back then because my attitude was with 10 cards I should have 100 or 200 or 300 cards. So anyway, that was the local card show back then. So then all of a sudden, and we were kids, so we didn't know anything. The San Gabriel Valley was our little world back then, and that's where we had these shows. Then we heard about this collectors convention, and we're like, "Oh my God, it's going to be huge. It's going to be at this big hotel out by the airport," which we lived about 30 miles away. And we were all going, "We have to go." We were all 15 years old. One of us might have been 16, but none of us drove. And we were just like going, I mean, now it's just weird because back then, Los Angeles didn't have any like light rail or subways. They did have a bus system. There was no Uber, nothing like that. You just didn't hitchhike 30 miles. Back then, hitchhiking was the thing. We just said we got to go, and I put myself in charge of, let's see if we can take the bus out there, you guys. And I was on the phone back then with Rapid Transit District, the RTD. They were the bus system of Los Angeles. And you could call and you could say, "I'm trying to get from here to here," and they'd tell you what buses to take. And we found out that we could take, I think, from our town, 2 buses to get to the convention. We're like, great, great. What we didn't, so we were kind of already thinking, let's do this. What we didn't think about was how many buses is it going to take to get home at that hour of the evening? If we stuck around till the end or 6 o'clock, getting back to our neck of the woods might have been a kind of a tough thing on a weekend, especially. So we hadn't really we were like, naively saying, let's take the bus. And then all of a sudden, my friend Dan, his parents they had, I guess they weren't RVs back then. They were called campers, where you would They had it was a larger truck, and they had a kitchen, and then you could sleep there and have beds, and they all of a sudden volunteered to take the four of us along with another guy named Rob, the friend of ours, and what they were going to do is they were going to drive us to the Marriott for the baseball card convention. And while we were inside hanging out, they were just gonna, watch TV in the camper or the trailer, whatever you wanted to call it. And we were gonna hang out. So we were like, "Oh my God, we're going to this thing. We're going to the convention." And we're like, back then, and you guys always hear me talk about quantity versus quality. Back then, I just wanted to buy every card imaginable. So I was like, man, I'm gonna come home with a bunch of cards, like 800 or 1,000 cards. And that was my mentality. So I remember um, I was working at the baseball card store, but I wasn't making much money. And I was going to take, for those of you who are on a budget these days, I was going to take $10. And naively going, yeah, $10. That's what I always take to the local cards show. So I'm going to take $10. Well, then my mom found out I was going, and she goes, "Oh, honey, here. If you're going to go to this thing, here's $10." So now I had $20. I was like, "All right, $20 for the card show." And then that day, as I was getting ready to get picked up, my brother, he was 5 years older, so he was what? He was 20ish. He was like, he was working, and he was like, "Hey man, have fun. Here's $10." And he gave me $10. So all of a sudden I had $30. I have 30 massive, seriously, I have 30 massive dollars. Let's say this, when I announced in the camper or the trailer that I had $30 for the show, Dan's parents just stared at each other with their mouths wide open. I flat out saw them look at each other saying, "He brought $30?" Um, because that was just a lot of money for cards. So we're like, right on. Other people, one of the guys brought $5, and I think someone else, and then the other two guys brought like 20. So I had $30, and I go, this is going to be amazing. So, Dan's parents drive us down there, and we get, they park the car in the hotel parking lot. We say goodbye, and we leave. So, looking at it today, think about the National today or any card show you go to. Like if I'm going to the West Coast card show, I have my backpack. I have water bottles. Sometimes I have snacks. We didn't think about any of that stuff. We showed up empty-handed. No one even discussed lunch. So we showed up completely empty-handed, except for a smart guy here. For some reason, all of a sudden, just right before we were going to go, for some reason, we had a shed and in the backyard, and we had these money bags maybe this size, where you would stick rolls of quarters, like the Brinks pickup trucks would bring a delivery of 50 rolls of quarters. And I had two of those bags. And I thought, you know what? I should bring these bags in case I come home with a lot of cards. Because none of us showed up with 800 count boxes. I don't even know if those things existed at that point. None of us showed up with a binder with full of sheets to put our cards in. We just showed up. My God. So here we are, four naive young men with nothing in their hands, and I have my money bag, and I'm like, all right, let's go. So we walk into this place. For me, and I don't know what it's like now. I mean, yes, I go to the West Coast show, and when I always get there, I always look around. I go, nice room. I go, this will be fun. Back then, we were just like, oh my God. Remember, we were used to this small room at the Best Western Inn, probably something that's similar to what you guys talk about it when you got those of you that go to Strongsville. Just this tiny room. And now all of a sudden we are in this big, so-called massive 12,000 square foot ballroom. And for me, it was just like, oh my God. And I get there, It kind of reminds me of A Christmas Story when Ralphie is going up to meet Santa Claus, and all of a sudden the director of the movie turned everything into the first person perspective, Ralphie's view as he sits on Santa's lap and looks around the entire department store, and he's staring at Santa and he's staring at the elves, and that miserable Santa's going, ho, ho, ho. That was me when I walked in. I was like, oh my God. And I saw, like, in the first two tables, we literally walked in. Some guy had a stack this high of like 1968, a top slot of 1968 cards, a top slot of 1970 cards. There was just cards stacked everywhere. I'm not lying. Within 5 minutes, all of a sudden, I had a stack of cards. I was just buying left and right. And I could hear my friend Dan going, Rick, what are you doing? What are you doing with all those cards? I just got really excited and really emotional. And all of a sudden, I seriously had, in the first 5 minutes, I had bought like 400 cards. I think it cost me all of $10. I'm not sure, but I like I said, I believed in quantity back then, so I was just trying to buy anything vintage, especially from the late '60s and the early '70s. So I'm sitting there buying cards and just walking by table. Oh my God, look! I was really attracted by guys who were selling lots. So look, a 50 card lot. Look, and I was really into. One of the sellers back then, I don't know if it was Renata Galasso or somebody back then, Larry Fritsch, they had an advertisement where they would sell you one card from every year from 1951 to 1980 for like $20, something like that. I don't remember the price, but I wanted a card from every year back then. Oh my God, where I've come from that point on. But anyway, so I just sat there and just constantly, it felt like I was buying cards all day long. And the interesting thing is, looking back on it, I know that 1970s lot had a Bill Mazeroski card in there. The only thing I can tell you, the only card I can remember buying was the 1952 Topps Bobby Shantz card. And the only reason I bought it was because I wanted one card from every season. And he was on the 1975 Topps MVP subset. So I saw it I paid $1. And I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, I bought the Bobby Shantz card. Eventually, I'd get rid of it. But just about a year ago, I bought another one. I still have it. But we spent our day there. I came home with several hundred cards. The guys also came home with a few cards. But I cannot honestly tell you, oh, I saw 1954 Topps Hank Aaron. But the thing was, to be honest with you, I would see that at every show I went to back then. I would see a 1957 Topps Brooks Robinson. I would see a 1967 Topps Tom Seaver. You would see those cards back then. What I don't remember, honestly, I didn't see things like Gowdy or play balls. If there were T206s flying around, I don't remember. But my eye back then also was only into staring at Topps cards. I know I saw some Bowman cards. Kind of like today when I go to a show, the minute I see Pokemon or the minute I see a modern dealer, he has modern baseball, I just walk by, but I might not realize he has a 1948 Yogi Berra, and that's in his case. But because I saw these modern cards, I just kept walking. So that's what I saw that day. We all came home with cards. We didn't stay all day. And the funny thing was, we didn't eat. And I'm really bad about that now because I'm one of those that eats. But back then, we just went to the show for several hours. I would say probably 6-7 hours. Came home, like I said, with about 800 cards. And even back then, I was inventorying them. I got out my piece of paper and wrote down how many new 1971 cards I bought and how many 1967 cards I bought. It was just a fun time. And that was my first big card show. And I remember the three of the four of us planned to go back the next year. And by 1981, a lot had changed in all three of our lives. And the guy whose parents drove us the first year, by the second year, he was off with meeting girls, and he had no longer had any interest in going to buy baseball cards. And I wasn't about to ask my brother to drive us out there. So we didn't go. And I don't think I went to another national probably until around 1990, 1991, when I went to pick up. I went to the VIP event they had back then. I think I picked up like a Upper Deck, Barry Sanders, and Joe Montana prototype cards, something along those lines. And then I went about 5 years later because Sandy Koufax was signing, and you could see his autograph right there. Right there, I got that autograph that day. But it was a good time. And I know someday I will go to a national, but for now I'm going to settle for the Burbank show, or the West Coast Card Show as it's known now, just because I'm one of those who stays in my own world. But anyways, what are we going to do today? All right, 1961. We're starting a countdown. So I left you with 19 cards. I'm going to show you what I picked up in the last few weeks and talk about what I'm going to do in my next video. And I have spoken long enough. Here we go. I left you in my last 1961 video down to 19 cards to finish the set. Made one big, I wish I could say final push, but one big push. So let me show you what I've got, and then I'm going to give you a teaser of that's going to lead into next week's video, or the video after the national. I'm going to show you this video, probably take a week off so I can enjoy the national videos, and you guys can too. And then I'll come back after the national with a new video. So the first card I picked up was this Roger Maris card number 2. I think I paid $60 for that one, but that was a fun one to pick up. This was his big year, 61 home runs. I love these Yankee cards, the Maris, the Mantle, the Whitey Ford, these headshots. I don't know what other people think, but for some reason, I just love the way these look. And Maris has a great look there. He's card number 2. Dick Groat was card number 1. So there's Roger Maris. Speaking of Maris, the fun doesn't end. The American League home run leaders, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, Rocky Colavito. And then I'm going to lift this up just for me to read it. I know that this other player, I had to look him up, and now I can't even read his name. When I'm looking at these, you guys, I'm not looking through the iPhone. So he was a player for Washington, I believe, or for the Twins. He had some big years there for a while with the Senators. So went on to play with Minnesota when they moved, and so he's one of the guys on there. Seriously, I had never heard of him, and I looked him up. He had like 5 or 6 good years. I only wish that my eyes were good enough that I could read what his name is. When I start watching the video, I go, oh, there he is. That's his name. All right, next card. I just spoke about Maris and Mantle. Now here's Whitey Ford, another headshot. Love that one. This one I kept finding and kept losing. I was at the mall with my mother, and I could have won an auction for like $11. And then I was like, damn, I missed out. And then I'd see the card for $50 or $45, and I go, I'm not spending that. Somebody just, there was an auction for $11. Eventually I found one for $13 or $14. But that is Whitey Ford, who I believe also that year had his best season. I think he won 25 games. And that is Whitey Ford. The next two, no, not the next two of the next 3 I got from the batter's box. And that is Frank Robinson, 1961. I think he won the MVP that year. I think he did. And had some big years there with the Red Sox. Found this card for $23, and then I got 15% off because the batter's box was having a sale. I lost several cards with the batter's box because I had a cart thinking that they would have a 15% off sale for the 4th of July. They didn't. So I lost like a Mantle MVP card, a Yastrzemski card. Gained a couple of cards though, but Frank Robinson being the first one. And then this one I won on eBay. This one was hard to get. Moose Skowron, Bill Skowron. I call him Moose, but This guy was was the hardest card to get in the last like 30 or 40 cards. I would never see him. I would never find him. And I'm assuming he's some type of single print or something. And when I did find him, any New York Yankee card from 1961 for some reason I feel is very expensive. And they had an amazing year, obviously. So that is Bill Skowron. Later went on to the Dodgers for a year. Same with the White Sox for several years. And then my other card from the batter's box, Bob Clemente. Don't call me Roberto. Now you're going to notice all these cards, a lot of them, you're like, wow, you didn't buy them graded. I'm trying to do as little graded as I can, but there are several cards I did buy graded. You've already seen my Mickey Mantle card, and then I had Juan Marichal and Billy Williams, their rookie cards. Sandy Koufax I have graded, and then I have all the All-Stars graded. But other than that, I'm trying to get everyone else ungraded just because I want to put them in the binders. So that's Bob Clemente. All right, another Babe Ruth vintage card. Wow, I mean, I'd love to get one from the 30s, but I'm going to have to settle for this one from 1961. Babe Ruth hits his 60th home run. Another card that's not easy to get. I don't know, or it's easy to get, but it's expensive to get. And I don't know if it's because people just don't want to buy a 33 Gaudy, so they just want any Babe Ruth card. But here's Babe Ruth hitting his 60th home run. All right, I'm going to get shit for this one because my statement is going to upset some people. But this has to be the worst Mickey Mantle card ever made. Give me a break. Mantle Blast 565-foot home run. This baseball thrill set, I just showed you Babe Ruth. I've shown you Walter Johnson. I've shown you Christine Mathewson, Rogers Hornsby, all wonderful shots of the player. This one shows me this baseball stadium in Washington, D.C., Griffith Stadium. I want a picture of Mickey Mantle. Anyways, finally found this card. A lot of these cards I was finding and sitting on them going, should I buy them? Should I not buy them? And when you do that, you lose the card. But the one thing you learn when you're working on a vintage set, like from the 60s, is tomorrow you lose a Willie Mays card. 10 minutes later, there's a new one on eBay. But here is the Mickey Mantle Baseball Thrills. I am finally done with that subset. I am finally done with that one. Next card, another Bill Mazeroski. Bill Mazeroski. That's a nice looking card. Was able to pick that one. I think I got that one from Kit Young. That and Moose Skowron I got from Kit Young. And then the next card, I got two more for you. From one of my favorite subsets, the MVP set. We've almost come full circle. I showed you the Roger Maris base card. Now I'm showing you the Roger Maris MVP card. He was the MVP in 1960. Good looking card, good looking subset. Along with Maris's All-Star card, he's got three very nice cards in this 1961 set. I can't speak highly enough about this 1961 set. I'll look forward to it ending, just because I definitely a set I undervalued or underappreciated until I started building it. Then the last card is going to also be an MVP card, Mr. Willie Mays. Now, the one thing I found interesting with the Willie Mays is the airbrushed. I'm assuming that's a shot taken of him on the San Francisco Giants, and he won his MVP with the New York Giants. I don't know why they just didn't show a card of Willie wearing a New York a New York Giants cap, similar to what they did with Roy Campanella and Don Newcombe wearing Brooklyn Dodgers caps. But for some reason, Willie Mays was left with a blank or a dark-looking cap, an airbrushed cap. So that's my Willie Mays card. Okay, so with that, and I'm going to use this as the teaser to my next video, I am at 8 cards left for 1961. And you guys have been watching my 1961 videos for several weeks now. This one is going to be the last one for a little while. And you guys are going, what happened? I'm going to give you a teaser for my next video. It's just sometimes you end up finding other cards that end up killing your budget for the big card show coming up in Orange County in a few weeks. So I am laying off on the 1961 cards for about 5 weeks. As I speak, I'm already a week into this. So you're going to have to stick around and wait to see what I do with 1961, but you're going to have to stick around next week to show you some cards that I really want to show off to you guys, just because they're cards I always wanted. But once again, if you hung out with me this long, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game, for a ball